Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership of the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning. Welcome to Deep Dive Film School.
Oh, this week we're going to get into that one scene from The Two Towers from 2002, if you can believe it.
Let's dive in. All right, everybody, I'm Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Pulcher.
And if you like what you see/hear, please like and subscribe. You can find us in all the spaces and places that people what?
Find good media.
That is right. We have festivals, we have 101s, we have punishment reviews, and then we do these scene analyses.
Sure, analysis. I like that.
And this week we talked about this a while ago of putting this one on our list of scenes to choose from.
Yes.
This is there's a couple of these peppered in this movie, but this is probably the most substantial one.
Yes.
This is where Smeagol and Gollum actually have a conversation with each other.
We meet Smeagol.
Yeah, and really, I mean, there's an early moment where Frodo calls him Smeagol, and he does that, "What did you say?" You know, and like it kind of reawakens this part of himself that's been long dormant. He does refer to himself as us from the very first time that we meet him.
That's true.
Which is, you know, again, very much right from the book. Although this scene, the idea of there being a duality of personalities is not in the original book.
It isn't.
Yeah. But he does refer to himself as us, and he does reference Smeagol as being this other character.
I don't think it's too far-fetched from Gollum to have this, though, right? Like, I think, which is part of the genius of this scene, you know.
We want to find some kind of redemption for this character because he is this very sad, tragic figure who's.
This doesn't make him any less sad.
No. I guess what I'm saying is that the idea of Smeagol being inside of him gives him the potential for redemption.
Yes, but also the potential for evil and damage.
Totally, and I think that keeping us guessing is really what makes this movie in particular. You know what? There's other great fight scenes in it. I love the Treebeard
Helm's
stuff.
Deep is amazing.
All that shit's great. Mm-hmm. This is Andy Serkis's movie. I mean, they
end on it.
Yeah. I mean, when he showed up as Gollum, I remember just being, because
no one knew what that was. I mean,
dude, here's the thing.
Yes. Preach.
3 years before this, we met Jar Jar Binks.
That's a good point.
Okay, it needs to be stated. And it was like, the idea was a technical achievement, but in practice, it was dumb. And a lot of times kind of looked like Roger Rabbit. Mm-hmm. And it's like you go, yeah, you could have, but did you have to? You know, it left that feeling.
Yeah.
Now, I can only imagine what these Weta guys felt like because they had been storyboarding this since 98. Okay? So when Lucas farted in the car like that, like, were they like, do we keep moving forward? Because people did not like how that turned out.
The Mo capture stuff you were talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a huge part. I mean, honestly, until Fellowship, battle scenes were done with real people.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, when you say, "Oh, there's a Lord of the Rings scene in this battle sequence," you know exactly what that means. You start on an orc's face,
seen that before,
and you spin all the way out until you see that there's 500,000 people.
And by the time we saw the first one, this one was halfway done being made,
right.
And then we got it the next year.
Yep. And man, talk about burying the lead, because in Fellowship, we just have that single scene of him grabbing those rocks and looking over, and it's almost all silhouette, right?
It's just his eyes, because he wasn't Andy Serkis in that movie.
Nope, he wasn't. They had that one scream of him. We didn't even hear his voice or anything like that. And then here, when he shows up and they're wrestling with him, you're like, holy shit.
Seriously.
Like, this is not Jar Jar Binks. Like, but it is worth saying that it's only a couple of years later.
I mean, he should be considered a pioneer of all of this stuff, you know, depending on how you look at these things. You know, I think people, yourself included, look at the stuff Zemeckis does with like Polar Express and you hate it.
Yeah.
But there's stuff like this where you can do it. But like Planet of the Apes. You know, he plays Caesar in that one as
Totally,
well.
totally.
And
He
you know,
played King Kong, for Christ's sake.
oh, that too. Yeah, I was like, there's another one out there.
Yeah,
what is it?
it's
Is that
King
King Kong?
Kong.
Which is a wild movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's a long movie, and it is a Peter Jackson masturbatory type of movie.
I mean, it ain't got nothing on Lovely Bones, but
Oh,
yes.
that's true. But Serkis's acting is pretty damn revolutionary, if you ask me, because you know we have had Jar Jar Binks and Roger Rabbit and these types of things where it's a mixture of this stuff, and obviously Hollywood got better at it, but he's completely hidden by CGI the whole time.
Yes.
And he's using these like cravings and withdrawals of a drug addict to play Gollum. That was like his inspiration,
Right,
for this.
because he doesn't have his heroin anymore.
And to me, this is like him being animalistic is so much harder, I would imagine, than trying to be Joe from down the street or whatever,
Well,
right?
exactly. And I think that, you know, they originally just hired him to do the voice.
Yeah.
And then Jackson said, I kept going back
Well, his
and
audition, I think, blew him
referencing,
away.
yeah, the audition tape. He's like, I kept going back and referencing it to the artists until they were just like, we got to have him here. Right. And so he's, you know, he's in his weird ping pong jumpsuit.
Yeah.
But he's in all of these scenes with Elijah Wood and why can't I think of Rudy's name?
Rudy?
Yeah.
Oh, Sean Austin?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Rudy.
Sam Wise.
Sam Wise Gamgees. Yeah. But he's Rudy. He'll
Yeah,
always
yeah.
be Rudy
That's
to
true.
me.
Rudy. Rudy.
But like, you know, you think about the dedication to that, because when you see those behind the scenes clips, like Serkis is like crawling. He's in like a Lycra bodysuit and he's crawling on his belly through like rocks in like, you know
That's
what I
I'm
mean?
saying. Like, this is more than a normal actor would have to go through and be believable and create a character like this that we've only seen in books so far. And, you know, be talked about it as like, hey, you should actually get nominated for supporting actor.
Totally.
Because of this. And my precious is like, that's one of the most quoted movie lines ever now.
Well, and it's such a different take on the character design too from, I mean, if you think about the Ralph Bakshi animated version, right, of the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
And the Gollum in that kind of looks like Admiral Akbar. Like it has like eyes up on the side here. It's very lizardy and it has this big long mouth, no nose, you know, and there are certain elements of the way that it moves and talks that you can see echoed here, but for the most part, it's this completely new character with those gigantic eyes and the
voice
weird
is
ears.
such a big part of it, though.
Oh yeah,
like,
definitely.
It sounds like he's gurgling something the whole time. Like,
Well, the cough that actually says Gollum is such a great touch too. I love that. Let's talk about this actual part.
yeah, I was gonna say, let's give a little context to this particular scene.
Yeah.
This is probably an hour, a little over an hour into the movie,
Right.
And Samwise and Frodo haven't met Gollum at the end of Fellowship, so this first hour is them kind of befriending him.
Well, he's stalking them in the very beginning.
He is,
Yeah,
but,
because
like,
they
catch
have
him
the
pretty
ring.
quick.
Yeah.
They catch him pretty quick. But you know, Sam is very defensive of Frodo, anyways.
Yeah.
But especially with Gollum, he does not trust him one bit. He's a liar. He's a thief. All he cares about is that ring.
Yeah.
But Frodo has these like. He has some sympathy for him because he's like, that could be me if I'm not
That's
careful.
the thing. Yeah. And
Right?
and you know, they ended up I think you see a couple of really quick flashes of it in Return of the King, but very, very quick. And they ditched sort of a larger vision that Frodo would have where he does basically become a Gollum-like thing. Like he has this like horrible vision of himself. And they gave him like much bigger eyes and gave him, you know, kind of made him into Gollum. And so, yeah. And he sees that as like the potential of what he could become. So you're right. He does have this, he wants to see Gollum also have some sort of redemption because it'll make him feel like
there is some hope that he can come back.
Yeah.
That's why he wants to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Obviously, these guys are sleeping, and this is where the scene kicks in, and you know he has a lot of guilt, a lot of issues, not only just with the possession of getting the ring back, but also killing Dagal in the first scene. and having some guilt with, you know, murderer.
Well, and it's great too, because we don't know that until the next movie, right? The next movie has that opening scene.
Oh,
of
is that
when
not
they're...
the opening of Two Towers?
No.
Oh,
I
you're
think
right.
Well, there's shots of it that are, but I think it's in the opening. Unless I'm wrong, I think that's the opening of Return of the King.
You might be right, yeah.
And so we've already gotten to know Gollum, but we do know that he's, you know, we see his hand, we see him grab
We've
grab the
seen that
ring.
part, yeah.
But I think that when they were still fisher folk is in the beginning of Return of the King.
Yeah.
So we know that he's definitely killed somebody for the ring, but we don't get that tragic actual
That's a good
flashback
point.
for quite a while.
I messed that up. It's been a while. And they're long movies.
Well, yeah, I know. They're
and
super
there's like
long.
15 editions.
Yeah, that are like 4.5 hours each. But yeah, I think that, you know, you're right that like he has all this guilt from killing his friend to get to the ring, and
You don't have any friends.
yeah, nobody likes you, right? Like all that stuff. It is like this it starts very minimalistic of I'm talking to myself. And then very quickly we start doing these 180 pans.
They're pants. It's not an edit. Well, it
Yeah.
turns into an edit and a little bit later in the scene. But the first time he started talking, the way that, and this is something we haven't talked about, but
Yeah.
Fran Walsh, his wife, actually directed the scene, not
Really?
not Peter Jackson.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's
but
great.
She wrote the scene because they needed to give him some sympathy. And he's like, well, you wrote it. You should direct it. And it's his favorite scene in all 3 of the movies. And he didn't direct it, which is amazing.
So this is really good to know, because it's good to know that Fran Walsh is responsible for one of the greatest scenes in the trilogy, because she's also responsible for one of the worst lines of dialogue that basically, in my opinion, and I know a lot of other people, caused a lot of the lore to collapse in on itself, which is that an orc says, meat is back on the menu, boys. Which then makes you go, so an orc knows what a menu is? And then you're like, so are there restaurants in orc land? And like, who fucking works at those restaurants? Is there like an orc maitre d'?
Yeah.
Like, and once you think of that,
A
like,
sous chef.
you can't unthink it, right? Like, how does an orc know what a menu is? I've seen how they're born. They're born in those sacks of slime.
Yeah.
Like, how does it know what a menu is?
Very smart.
Anyway, so
Christopher
it's good
Lee,
to know.
there was school.
It's good to know. Yeah, Saruman. You know, yeah. Come on down to Saruman's house of barbecue flesh. But so it's good to know that she's responsible for both the best and the worst.
That's
So
funny.
that's good.
I didn't know. That's pretty fucking funny. There's obviously, you know, at first you're just like, you watch the scene, the back and forth, the editing and the shooting of the scene is the best part of it.
Oh,
like,
easily.
and obviously Circus's performance and that kind of stuff. But the way they over here, then they pan this way, and now he's looking at you. So
Yep.
they're breaking the fourth wall by that.
Yep.
And so it's just a simple pan, but the character looks at you when you're over here. So at first you're just like, huh, yeah, he is kind of talking to himself. And then they start editing back and forth, and you can see the 2 different Gollum and Smeagol, and it's a physical thing.
Yes.
And how he talks. Like, I think when he's Smeagol, he's like a childlike,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like, he's kind of like innocent and has these big pupils. The pupils I noticed was a big difference, because when he's Gollum, he's like, "Ah,"
Yeah,
and
they're
much bigger.
almost black, right? It's like
Yeah.
the sclera is open all the way up.
Yeah.
Well, and then the other thing too, you're right, that switching back and forth and breaking that fourth wall, but it's also breaking your kind of 180 degrees.
It is
like
it breaks the rules of filmmaking.
yeah, it breaks that rule of like never cross all the way over, because they have to,
Yeah.
in order for it to feel like there are 2 characters talking to each other. And it's this very modern meta trickery in a movie that otherwise leans so far into the sword and sorcery swashbucklery,
Sure, yeah.
that those little tricks feel really fresh. And I remember when it happened in the theater, I just felt like, whoa, that is such a great way of really exploring the split personality. And
Yeah.
it's so tragic too, because Smeagol wins, and it isn't
And he
until
celebrates.
and it isn't until the
Smeagol is free.
the riders from Rohan capture him, and they're whipping him and beating him, that he basically asks for Gollum's help again, and Smeagol, for all intent and purpose, is gone after that, right? And so it is really sad, because for a moment you're like, that redemption that we're all rooting for is there, and then like once he's captured, and it's when he's catching the fish, and he's singing the Smeagol, like it's a fish, delish, fish, and that whole thing. And then they capture him and they're beating him, and you're like, fuck, he never had a chance.
I think they did a great job of adding something into what wasn't in original source material, because that can be hit or miss. Like,
it really can.
I think you can do a bad job. Like Road to Perdition did a great job adding the character of Jude Law
completely
into there.
Let's say the movies that these guys did after this
Yes.
probably didn't need to add 2 extra movies worth of material into something.
Oh, you mean the
need
Hobbit
it?
movies?
Jesus,
Oh, yeah.
please us. They did not need to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
That
big bummer.
A little rough.
Yeah.
A little rough. This is only a 2-minute scene.
I know, it's
Wild.
so short and it sticks in your brain. When
very
it was
effective.
over, I was like, that was it? Like,
Yeah, very effective.
yeah, very effective. And again,
Like, so is he the villain or is he just a threat? Like,
Right.
because Saruman, and there's much bigger threats in this world than
Right.
Gollum. But to Frodo, who is our kind of main love, our main character, our hero,
Yeah.
that's why Gollum's a threat. But
I mean, at the end of the day, it is because, not by heroism, but by greed, he's the one who actually takes the ring into Mount Doom. Like he's trying to keep it. And at the end, it's a happy story for him because he got his ring back. I mean, for the 0.2 seconds as he fell from the cliff into the lava, he got his precious back.
he did. Finally.
So, happy stories happy endings all the way around. Wait, that sounded way dirtier than I wanted it to, but you know what I mean.
Well, that is that one scene from The Two Towers. I can't believe we've gone this long. We've been doing the show since 2007, folks. Some version of the show since 2007. And I think we were always weary to talk about Lord of the Rings because it's, one, just it's an experience,
Yeah.
I think. But it's also something where you feel like it's hard to jump around. You want to talk about
You
the
can't
whole
talk
thing, right?
about just that one little piece.
yeah.
Well, we did today,
Except-
luckily, but even that was about 5 minutes longer than we normally do these segments. So
But still, I think it's something to do with like wanting to honor the whole thing.
Totally.
As opposed to, so that's why we've never really talked about it. And because we want to see it as a whole trilogy, not individual movies, though at some point we absolutely need to do
we'll
it.
just do
So
the whole thing.
There's
Yeah.
no Lord of the Rings content out there anyway. So like, let's fill up the internet
Yeah,
with
no one ever
our
talks
hot
about these
takes
movies.
about Lord of the Rings. All right.
Stop the presses. It's pretty good.
Thanks very much for listening, everyone.
Yes.
Please like and subscribe if you haven't before. Hit that icon on YouTube and follow us on Instagram. Those are our most active channels. But we love you. We thank you for watching and listening. And we will continue next week with our food movie festival. We're going to do Nick Cage's Pig. Can't wait.
I've wanted to do this movie for so long. But yeah, so for this week, thanks so much.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Bye.